In this video, we're going to try to print up some information about the stream that the user is trying to access from our stream edit component. Again, we eventually want to show some text inputs here and whatnot, but for right now, let's just make sure that we can load up the appropriate stream so we know what default title and description we should put into these two text inputs. Now to do so, we're going to use a combination of two sources of information. First off, we need to know the ID of the stream that the user is trying to see. The ID of the stream that the user is trying to see is available inside of our props object. Underneath props, match, params, ID. So that right there is the ID of the stream that we are trying to access. Now the second source of information that we need to get access to the stream we care about is the list of streams inside of our Redux state object. If you go back over to the main list of streams right here, and then take a look at your Redux DevTools panel, you can click on that state button, and you'll notice, yep, we've got that streams object. We've got a key of 3 inside there, and that is the stream that we care about. So essentially between the props object right here and the list of streams that we have inside of our state store, we can somehow select the stream with an ID of 3 and then print up some information about it inside of our component. All right, so I'm going to kind of resize a couple things here really quickly. And I'm going to go back to the edit screen. I'm then going to flip back over to my code editor, and we're going to write out a little bit of code to get the appropriate stream out of our state store and print it up. Now, in order to get some information out of our Redux store, we're going to use the exact same process that we have every single time before. We're going to add in the connect function to our file from React Redux. We'll then define a map state to props function and wire that up to stream edit. So that is how we're going to get our list of streams into the component. All right, so I'll define my map state to props right here. And then inside of here, we're going to want to return an object that has a stream property. And we're going to want the value for this thing to be the stream that the user is trying to edit. Remember, we're going to eventually take the title and description from it and show them inside those text inputs so a user can edit them. But for right now, we're just trying to print up the title and description inside of stream edit. So now we're in a little bit of a bind here, and this is actually a very similar situation that we've been ran into in the past. Our stream edit component has access to the props object, and that props object is what knows about the ID that we're trying to show, or the ID of the stream that we're trying to show. But that props object appears to only be accessible inside of the stream edit function. On the other hand, map state to props is what knows about the big list of streams that's entirely stored inside of our state object. So one source of information is available up here, the other source of information is available down here. Well, like I said, remember we have ran into this situation before, and we had learned that our map state to props function actually gets called with two separate arguments. The first argument is always our state object, and we're just about always going to make use of that. The second argument is the onProps argument. And this is a reference to the props object that shows up inside of our stream edit component. Just to help you remember exactly what onProps is right there, I'm going to delete the console log inside of my component. I'm going to add a console log of onProps inside of map state to props. And then to make sure that I have some valid syntax here, I'll say stream is null for right now, just so I have an actual value there. We're not going to leave stream as null. I just want to get my code to run successfully inside the browser. And then finally, to test this out, I'll set up my connect function at the bottom. Like so. Okay, so let's now save this, and we'll take a look at the console log of onProps inside of map state to props. So I'm going to save this. I'll flip back over, and now I see my console log right here. Now notice it is the same exact looking props object to the console log we had previously. I see that it has the match params ID property. So again, anytime that map state to props is called, we actually get two arguments. The first is all the state out of our Redux store. The second is the props object that shows up inside of our component. So now inside of map state to props, we have all the information we need. We know the ID of the stream that we're trying to access, and we also have our big object with all of our streams in the form of the state object right here. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that console log. I'm going to remove the null. We'll then go into our state object. We're going to get our list of streams. And then remember, our streams variable right there, or the streams property, refers to an object. where the keys of that object are the IDs of all the streams that we've loaded up. So we had done that to make sure that writing out our reducer was really easy and straightforward, but there's another benefit as well. The other benefit is that anytime that we want to select a record out of that object by using an ID, all we have to do is use the very familiar bracket notation. So inside of the streams object, we want to find the stream with an ID of 3. So inside those square brackets, we're going to reference ownProps.match.params.id. So right here, streams ownProps.match.params.id, like so. So that should select the appropriate stream out of the object that contains all of our streams inside of our Redux store, assign that to the stream property inside this object, and then return it from map state to props. So the final result of all this is that our props object should now have a stream property that contains the stream that our user is trying to edit. Now, before we try to log or print out some information about that stream inside this div right here, let's first do one more console log of props right here, because there's going to be some kind of interesting, unexpected behavior that I want you to see. So I'm going to add in the console log of props. I'll then save this, and then we will flip back over to our browser and take a look at what happens. Now I'm going to do a hard refresh here. There's my console log. So now I'll expand this. And when I do so, you'll notice that stream showed up as undefined. Well, if stream is undefined, that means that we did not successfully pull the appropriate stream out of our streams object right here. It means that something is going wrong with that little chunk of code. But let me show you some really interesting behavior. I'm going to navigate back to my big list of streams by clicking on Streamy up here. And then I'm going to click on the Edit button again. Now, as soon as Stream Edit loads up, we get a second console log here. Again, that's from the console log inside of our component. And I'm going to expand this second console log. And when I do so, you'll notice that the stream is now appearing correctly. So it seemed like when we first loaded up this page, we had no stream. But then when we started to navigate around a little bit, it seemed like the stream suddenly showed up. So that's kind of unexpected behavior. Just to make sure this is really clear, let's run through this one more time very quickly. I'm at streams edit 3. I'm going to refresh the page. When I refresh the page, I see my console log again. Stream is undefined. But if I now go back to Streamy and then click on the edit button again, I see that stream has now showed up correctly. I've got the entire object right there. All right, so again, this is kind of interesting behavior. Let's take a pause right here. When we come back to the next section, we're going to take a look at a diagram to make sure that you really understand why we are sometimes seeing stream of undefined, and then sometimes we are seeing the stream with the appropriate value inside of it. So quick pause, and I'll see you in just a minute.